Thank you for checking out the first ever Buffdivers podcast, where my brother and I take a look at the state of Helldivers 2, analyze a subject, and brainstorm ways to improve aspects of the game. My name is Quinn, and this is my brother Shay.
Hello, fellow patriots.
Today we're going to be talking about how to make SMGs better. Coming up, we have the current state of SMGs, the SMG power fantasy, and finally, how to make SMGs better. So we're going to start with the current state of SMGs. What do we like about SMGs right now, Shay?
So there's a couple of SMGs that are good. There's the Knight, really powerful, really fun. And then there's Reprimand. That one's also, I'd say, fairly strong. And then after that, those are all to me kind of E tier weapons. When you look at kind of the total landscape of weapons in the game. And then after that, I think they drop off pretty quickly into C minus to unusable. So what I like is definitely you can use it with one hand. They have higher ergonomics, and the few standout weapons feel good and they feel fun. What I don't like about them is when you get into the Defender, the Pummeler, the Staw. There's just no real reason to use these guns at all, and their identity is totally squashed by just assault rifles, or totally just overshadowed by the other two SMGs in the category. I feel like the identity of SMGs in general, the one gimmick that they have is you can use them with one hand, and you can kind of shoot while you're running. And sure, that's cool, but I feel like more needs to be lead into about the aspect of being able to wield it in one hand.
I'd have to agree with that. Just to interject, I feel like a lot of the lower tier SMGs are really outclassed even by secondary weapons. The Crisper, the Talon, both are considerably more effective than both the Defender and the Pummeler. Especially if you're wanting to go with the one-handed functionality of it. The Reprimand is a very powerful weapon, but it kind of has a weird identity crisis as far as an SMG goes, because it doesn't have that same one-handed functionality. I know that when they announced that, I was like, finally, a medium pen SMG. Now I can do a cool medium pen shield build, and I can feel like a little, a tank moving across the battlefield. But as soon as I realized it wasn't one-handed, I was pretty disappointed, and up until weapon customization dropped, I didn't want to use it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the Reprimand's kind of typifies the identity crisis of the entire genre of submachine guns. Because why use that when I could use an Adjudicator, Liberator, Penetrator? I mean, other than it does have like a little bit better feel. It's a little bit more powerful, but the small mag size, where all other SMGs are up into the 35 plus easy. Most everything I think is starting at like 40 rounds in the magazine. To have the Reprimand at 25 and having it two-handed, it's kind of like, what should this have just been an assault rifle? What's going on here? So no, I totally agree. And I think as we kind of get into how we make things better, I think we'll come back to the Reprimand and how to make its identity much clearer.
Agreed. Well, let's push forward a little bit into the ideal SMG power fantasy, because you've told me a few times that Helldivers 2 is a power fantasy generator. So we're chasing these iconic power fantasies from our favorite media sources growing up, other games and movies. I remember the first time playing Halo 2. Shay and I are both in our 30s, so we were there. We were there on the front lines with Master Chief when Halo 2 dropped, and I remember I think that was one of the first games that we really had like that kind of run and gun, picking up weapons and wielding them with both hands. discarding them as they are emptied out, picking up something else to fill up that offhand. And it just felt so cool with the weapon combinations, with like, running around with a plasma pistol in one hand and, a magnum in the other. You're popping shields off of elites and headshotting them. And it just felt really awesome.
Yeah, and it built this diversity, this toolbox when you were playing, where again you got two hands, and if you can manage a weapon in each hand, the build diversity definitely expands. Your kind of battlefield control expands, and again, the power fantasy is now really there. It's because when we get out of Halo and just get into popular media, I think of like The Matrix, like the scene where they're charging the office, Neo, wielding double Uzis and MP5s, doing all these flips, just being super agile. That, to me, that is what the submachine gun power fantasy is wielding things in two hands, or having weapons that are just super high rate of fire, reloading super fast, close range kind of domination. And I feel like in the game, the submachine guns don't really get anywhere close to that. The Knight, I'll say this, the Knight definitely can definitely feel like that. It has a really high rate of fire, and you just kind of lay on the trigger and things start going down. But again, as you look at the other things in the categories, none of them's rate of fire is coming close. I mean, I was researching submachine guns a little bit. 600 rounds per minute is where submachine gun kind of starts. Pummeler and Knight, I don't think they're anywhere near that. And so, yeah, again, when we start trying to talk about what power fantasy should look like, I don't think we're really anywhere close to what I think everyone envisions the run and gun, ambidextrous fighting style should be like. The other thing I like is Equilibrium. Sword in one hand, or even Warhammer. The bolter and the chain sword, that type of combo. Those are iconic power fantasies that I think we all would love to be living out. And Helldivers 2 absolutely has the mechanics and the sandbox to be exercising it, but for some reason we're just not there.
Yeah, I mean, even GoldenEye back in its heyday had dual wielding.
Yeah.
You had the P90s just mag dumping on with two P90s, which is basically what the Knight is in Helldivers as its equivalent. But yeah, I'd really love to see the dual wielding come to Helldivers 2, and that would really give the SMGs more of an identity, more of a play style, more style, more of that run and gun type of identity that I think you and I both really would love to play with.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into how we make SMGs better. My first note is, because we bury the lead there a bit, but dual wielding to me is one of the first things that needs to be done for SMGs to have a true identity. And to me, I think the best way to accomplish this is that you can dual wield an SMG with your secondary. So, I'm a PlayStation user, but would be the same on PC. You cycle through your weapons. On PlayStation, I use Y. I hit Y, switch to my secondary. If I was using a submachine gun, I should be able to hit Y again, and then it pulls up both weapons. It should be it could be as easy as that. The mechanics of how exactly using two weapons works. We don't need to get in the weeds on that, but it is absolutely doable, seeing how as you have shields in the game that are already kind of functioning with a different keybind, and there's obviously animations, and the ambidexterity of the Helldiver is kind of already programmed into the game somewhat. To me, I think that's where we need to start going.
I had a different path of implementing it that I would imagine would be pretty simple, where it's you're wielding an SMG and it will unlock a free stratagem, or this is perhaps something that you have to use as a stratagem slot, and it calls down a second one of your primary weapon. So that way, perhaps it could be coded that way. So when you go and pick up that second weapon out of the pod, it codes as dual wielded, and now you have two of them. Perhaps you can't store the second one; you have to drop it. But I thought that might be another way to implement dual wielding that could, potentially work in the sandbox.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea too. Where I mean, even just having a stratagem that is pick a primary weapon to be dropped even sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
The ability to just any you could whatever you keep it on the same cooldown as any support weapon where you could just have a support weapon drop. Yeah, you have the eruptor, but you're running with some other weapon. It'd be great, even just for testing and some fun, or you're playing with a new player and you could bring an extra weapon for them, so they don't have to use whatever the Liberator stock or something like that.
Yeah, or you don't have to kill yourself to give them your weapon.
Yeah, exactly. I think even those two things, I think both those ideas combined work well in the same atmosphere, so that you can be using sword and knight, pummeler and senator together, because I would really like to be able to mix and match the secondaries with the primaries, because there's some fun combinations there.
Agreed.
Although running double knight would be badass.
It would be so awesome. That would be the Neo fantasy right there.
Yeah,
running down into a bot fortress, just screaming through the front, just dumping mags at I don't know, I think it's 900 RPM on the night. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think so, yeah.
But that would just feel pretty epic.
Yeah, it would. So, to me, that's the real on the nose one. I think everyone's wants that. A lot of people, a lot of content creators that I like to watch around Helldivers have mentioned that in one way or another. I think that should be one of the main focuses of getting this subgroup brought up to snuff. The next thing that I was thinking is, I think that, let's say dual wielding exists. I think if you're running an SMG solo, there needs to be some sort of movement speed buff. Either you're faster or you have more stamina, something related to one of those two things, or both, because again, you're running an SMG, you should be faster than if you're carrying an assault rifle. It's lighter, it's using lower caliber rounds, so I feel like your Helldiver should feel a little bit lighter on his feet, and it'd be fun to pair single SMG with heavy armor, so that maybe it mitigates a little bit of the the sluggishness that you have when you're using heavy armor. Or you go light armor and you're just you're a bullet, really being able to get up close quickly and dominate that space with what's hopefully a submachine gun that's meant to be that close. I think as we get in later and talk about into our next category of balancing the weapons, right now I think if you got up close with the pummeler, you would regret it.
I know during my testing, working up to this episode, I was regretting bringing an SMG pretty much every time I was running it. I was playing against the bots, and they just will keep walking up on you, the berserkers especially, unless you're hitting those shots, because you're working with light armor penetration on these rounds, so you don't you have to also be accurate with your shots, as well as maintaining your distance. Otherwise they will just run all over you.
Absolutely. And one last thing for the kind of just the feel of the guns, I think weapon sway on an SMG should be greatly reduced, so that you can run and gun more.
I'd really like to see that.
Great. So kind of going on from there, Quinn, I was thinking about just balancing the weapons in general. And you already kind of talked about the reprimand. So, if you were to rebalance some of these weapons right now, what would be some of the first things you'd do?
Well, first of all, I would make the reprimand fall in line with the rest of the SMGs and make it one-handed. Perhaps there is a a trade-off. I understand that we do need to keep balance so that we're not throwing off the whole weapon sandbox, but perhaps if you're running, there's higher vertical recoil. Since
I
it is
mean,
going to be
the
a
knight is one-handed. I mean, excuse me, not the knight. The explosive crossbow is one-handed. I
yes.
mean, it's fine. The
I
Riverman can be
agree.
used with
Yes,
one hand.
you did. Yeah, we did. I was saying that the secondaries overshine outshine the SMGs, and the crossbow just makes them entirely irrelevant in my mind. But
Right.
yeah, I would really love to see, like you said, um, increased speed while wielding an SMG, increased stamina while using an SMG, rebalance the reprimand so that it is one-handed. Perhaps even increase the fire rate on the defender and the pummeler. Both of those, they feel very sluggish when you're using them. It's hard to dump out
Oh
enough
yeah.
damage to really do anything, or to use kind of like the spray and pray method to aim around the weak spot and hope one of those light armor pen rounds pierces the face of a devastator, or gets in between the armor plates of a hive guard.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that because I was thinking the same thing. I think they need to reload faster. I mean, the reprimand takes forever to load, and again, these are meant to be snappy weapons. That is one of the most sluggish weapons it feels like in the game, especially considering its mag size and where it's positioned. And I think its rate of fire feels good for what it's doing, but yeah, pummeler, defender, Staw feels pretty good. It feels fast, but it does have weapon customization, and when you use that compared to like your fully upgraded knight, it's a joke. I mean, again, that gun, there's like literally no reason for it to kind of be in the game, especially after West weapon customization came out.
That's
It's
actually the main
completely
reason I
irrelevant.
haven't even mentioned it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and most people won't. I think it was like a premium gun that you had to buy too, and yeah, it's kind of like don't waste your money.
Yeah, I mean, even on that same point, the best SMG in the game is locked behind a paywall with the Super Citizen bundle. So that doesn't feel good either when you're using just
No,
the in-game offerings. Most of the weapons in that SMG category are just, they're hard
unusable.
to justify bringing on anything above a 6.
Correct. Yeah, maybe even a five.
Yes, exactly.
It's bad. So yeah, I mean, the other thing too is I think that they should. Yeah, after we kick up the rate of fire on these things, I think you increase the damage, but you also just increase the damage fall off.
Yeah, I think that would make
SMG.
sense. I mean, you're using a
Yeah,
smaller caliber round, so I mean,
yeah,
the velocity is gonna fall off faster. I mean, that's just science.
that's just science, bro. Yeah, exactly, and especially when with the drum mags or anything like that, those things had high rates of fire. And hey, maybe these are customizations that could be added to the SMGs in the future, rather than, I don't. I'm sure Arrowhead doesn't like it, and I know that I don't much care for it when a game is, constantly tuning one weapon. A Raptor, kind of jumps out at you like a weapon that needs to be touched 50 times, which I think they were correct this final touch. Hopefully they never touch it again. Um, but with weapon customization, now they've kind of set the precedent where, hey, you don't need balance patches. Just give us things that, we can unlock so that we can further tweak these weapons. Make it so that I can choose a rate of fire in the customization for the different SMGs. And my next thing was, I think we're definitely going to get into different ammo types and different, attachments for these. And yeah, maybe give us some different. Maybe the SMG gets some kind of exclusive rounds to this category that can make it feel more powerful as well.
I'd really like to see
I think
that.
SMGs with like incendiary rounds would be really, really powerful because you can pump out a lot of bullets, light things on fire real quick, and then be kind of switching targets fast. That would be cool and would really kind of put them in a better spot.
I agree, and as you had mentioned, being able to change your rate of fire. Maybe we add a category for uppers and lowers for the weapon body that will give us different abilities for increased fire rate or different burst fire rates as well.
Yeah,
I think that both of those would probably add another layer to build up the SMGs to make them a little bit more effective.
totally agree. One other thing I think would be cool, I know silencers at some point are coming to the game. SMGs to me are like the perfect silenced weapon, because they are lower caliber. You're meant to get up and close and personal with these things. I think those would track onto those weapons a lot. I mean, some weapons putting silencers on them just kind of doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, put a silencer on the eruptor. It's like, okay. But if because again they're going for somewhat realism here. I think there's some assault rifles that it makes sense for, and some that it doesn't. But I think all the SMGs could be eligible for a silencer and really give the stealth divers some more fun tools for that play style.
Especially with the recent changes to how stealth works in the game, I really think that
Yeah,
silencers would add on to that, and I'd love to see them bring smoke into that fold, that trifecta for stealth. We have those
yeah,
gameplay changes, add in silencers, and then perhaps a rework on how gas works in the game to make it actually, you know, I don't remember the last time I saw somebody bring smoke grenades or Eagle smoke strike, but yeah, I'd love to see them make that at least a viable choice for a power fantasy, or at least a gameplay style.
yeah. I'm sure a future episode will dive more into stealth mechanics and how to make those better. Yeah, lastly, with kind of the weapons and SMGs in general, I think they just need to add some more to the game. When you
Agreed.
look at the offerings there, they're all pretty bog standard, and we're in the future. Let's get some stuff that feels like we're in the future.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I'd love to
um,
see a
you know,
laser SMG a la
yeah,
the sickle. I would really love that. I've become a big fan of laser weapons. Um,
yeah,
since the drop of the Illuminate, that's kind of when I swapped over to laser cannon sickle before the introduction of the double-edged sickle, and I was like, man, I'm really excited for more of these. And they added in the double-edged sickle and the Talon. I would love to see like a double-edged laser cannon, but to stay on topic, a super fast firing laser SMG, man,
yeah,
that would be so cool. I would really like that.
yeah. I agree. Um, yeah, I'm sure there's some other cool space there. I can't really think of anything else other than, yeah, I'd love to get ammo types and then some more elemental style SMGs. I think we're done with just your classic bullet style SMGs. But one thing that I really want to see is what other people's ideas are. When we get this posted and see what people say in the comments, because a lot of this is an ongoing dialogue for sure. That hopefully we can have
Yeah,
people who listen to this that. A lot of this is like, let me just get this out of my head so I don't think about it anymore. But if we can, get some change, because Arrowhead's definitely shown that they are listening to the community. So, I'd love to see what the community thinks of all these ideas that we can later, bring this back, with more community ideas on the stuff that we think are really viable.
yeah, and there's no shortage of creativity in the Helldivers community. I see a lot of people constantly putting up full graphics of stratagem ideas, and you and
Oh,
I have been
yeah.
doing that for many months now, which I'm looking forward to sharing at some point soon. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like, just to go off of other weapon types we have in the game, a like scorcher type weapon in the SMG slot would be very cool as well.
Oh,
That
sure. That's
fires
a good one.
plasma rounds. An arc weapon, I would love to see another variation of the arc weapon. We have the de-escalator now. That's a very cool arc weapon. So, which is very different than the arc thrower and the arc blitzer. So I'd love to see something in the SMG slot that's another take on that, kind of like almost like a mini Tesla tower that's kind of omnidirectional, firing in a quicker cadence than the arc thrower or blitzer.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It's like kind of charges up and then starts like striking super fast within like a front area. That'd be sweet. I could I can picture that. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it definitely is a very visual idea.
Yeah. No,
Like you mentioned earlier, something with incendiary would be great. Um,
yeah.
I mean, even if we're not going to get customizable ammo, I would love to still see a one that comes default with that incendiary ammo, just similar to the incendiary breaker or the cookout. I really just
Yeah.
love. I mean, the fire is just so effective against pretty much all the biologicals in the game, and
Hmm.
even some of the machine type enemies do take a lot of damage from flames as well. So, you know,
Yeah.
I really
The
like
recent
the ballistic
fire changes are
shield.
really good.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm a big fan of the ballistic shield, so I love having things to pair with that. It'd be really cool
Yeah.
to have that incendiary SMG and a crisper, so you're just constantly laying down that heat.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be cool.
And
Well, great.
uh,
So,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh,
I was just gonna say I got one
um,
more one more idea that I alluded to earlier with the changing the reprimand to one handed. If we're not gonna do that, I would still love to see a medium pen one handed SMG.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That's a pretty low
Um,
hanging fruit.
it is, and again, just give it, damage fall off. That's quick. That's how you balance that kind of stuff. If you're worried about, again, the game has no shortage of difficulty. Buffdivers, it's a challenging game. I'm not going to say it's like a crazy challenging game, but like the things when you have some gun, like there are guns in this game that if you were looking at this from like a purely meta standpoint, most guns in the game don't even approach the kind of the peak of the explosive weapons and the plasma weapons. Like those guns just dominate everything.
Yeah, with the
Um,
incendiary weapons and coming up right behind him as well.
yeah, exactly. So there's to me, if there's ever a trepidation around putting out some sort of machine gun or submachine gun that was slightly pushed, I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything to worry about.
I don't think anybody would complain, that's for sure.
No, no, absolutely. So yeah, when it comes to the weapons, those are kind of our ideas there. Faster reloads, higher damage up close, getting the reprimand one-handed, better ammo types, better just ideas in the space, a little bit more exotic weapons. And that I think that kind of sums up what we're looking for there for the experience to be better. Um, so for me, then next, there's obviously the weapons, but then there's the kind of the stratagems that we have to support this SMG style. So if we're not going to be wielding an SMG or a weapon in both hands, well, we've already shown that they're fine giving us stratagems to pair with these one-handed weapons. And I think that so I want to go over what we have now and what I think a couple of balance changes to make those a little bit better, just in general. And then I have some other ideas that I'd like to get into. So, Quinn, you use the ballistic shield a lot.
Love it.
So one of the ideas that I had was, I think the ballistic shield should have a faster cooldown. I mean, again, there's no reason why that it should take that, whatever, 5 minutes to get another ballistic shield.
I would
Because
agree with
this is a
that.
purely defensive weapon. It's doing nothing but keeping you kind of alive for longer.
Yeah, plus, it is a consumable. Like it does have a health pool and it can get
Yeah.
destroyed, which happens pretty often.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think they need to drastically lower the cooldown on that, just to make them more readily available. The next thing that I would love to see is if you melee while holding the shield kind of ready, that you do a shield bash, and that's like a stunning hit.
I would love that. If instead of stun, since stun and stagger are two different things, I would much prefer a stagger mechanic on
Sure,
the
yeah,
shield
heavy
bash,
stagger. Yeah, it'd be
because
the heavy stagger.
I think with the release of the most recent War Bond, I think we've all seen that the stun mechanic probably needs a little bit of a rework. So I would
Agreed.
love to see a stagger on that shield bash. I think that would be really cool. I think the animations from the stagger would probably match better with the shield bash as well, as they're actually pushed off their feet a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you have any ways to kind of tune up the support shield a little bit more, but those are my two things, just to, again, just give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more power. Those are my thoughts on the shield.
One thing you could do with the shield is make it so that you can deploy it, set it down on the ground, and hide behind it,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
be able to use a two-handed weapon. Set it down while you're reloading your eruptor. Let's say you're not using a one-handed primary weapon. That way you can put it down and then you have some deployable cover. I would really like to see something like that.
Ooh, I think that's a really cool idea because when it is on your back, it is shielding your back, which is really cool.
Oh, that's a
Um,
great piece of tech on that. Where especially against the bots, pop that thing on your back, and you're just like, I need to get the hell out of here. You just pop it on your back
yeah,
and run, and that
yeah,
thing has saved me so many times.
yep, absolutely. I think one other thing that they should do with the ballistic shield is, I think when you're wielding it, and I think any like missile hit or anything like that, I think the ragdoll effect that comes when you block something should be vastly reduced. I mean, they need to reduce ragdoll significantly anyway, but I think that would really help the shield feel like a shield, because sometimes you're bearing down like an army of bots. You're like, well, let's do this, and then you get hit with one missile, and you're just like, oh god, and you just get like totally flung away. You're like, well, that wasn't cool.
Yeah, I know. I always want to have that epic moment of like, get behind me, I got this, and then
Yeah.
that aura just goes away instantly when that that rocket devastator knocks you off your feet.
Yeah, yeah. So I really think that should be inside of the rework for the shield. And all these are very simple things. I think that they could do very easily.
Yeah, and like
Um,
some of these things that we've suggested do require animations. So I understand that they're probably not the highest priority, but a few of these things that we have suggested are just buffs that should, theoretically, from a player's perspective, that should be pretty easily implemented.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I work with devs day to day, so like I understand the challenges that these guys kind of go through, but um, a lot of the things that I'm going to suggest and that you're going to suggest, Quinn, we've kind of thought about the ramifications of, is this actually something to be implemented? Sometimes you hear ideas and it's just like, that's never going to be in the game.
Yeah, like,
I,
great
I'm trying to
idea.
keep this.
Are
Yeah,
you gonna program this? I'm sorry.
exactly. It's like, yeah, I want a dragon stratagem. Now, yes, I do want that.
Yeah, me too.
But
That sounds great. Sign me up.
but I don't know if I'm going to get it anytime soon. Um, but we'll hope.
We'll hold on. We'll hold on. I have a lot of faith in the Arrowhead devs in their ability to pull things out of their asses. Because man,
Yeah,
they've done a lot
exactly.
where I've really been impressed, especially with all the enemy types. When they added in the Impaler, I was like, well, I hate this thing, and hats off to you
Yeah.
boys.
Yep,
And then the
exactly.
Factory Striders, I'm like, I
Yeah,
thought,
Factory Star is still, I think, the best enemy in the game for sure.
yes, I really enjoy fighting them. It brings my Empire Strikes Back dreams to life.
Yes. Yep.
Well,
Awesome. So the last, and the only other support stratagem is the directional shield.
yes,
So same thing there. I think reduce the cooldown on it a little bit. I think it should help nullify missile attacks. I mean, this one even more so because it's not even directly on your person. It is a projected field in front of it. So I really think it should be. There's no physics. There's no kinetic energy being transferred to you because it's hitting this barrier that is not connected to you. So I think that should That should be a thing with it. And then I think that when you're using a directional shield, if you're in a vehicle or you're in an emplacement or a mech, that it should just be on and would kind of help. It kind of overlap with other builds. Whenever I'm gonna like run a mech or go just full mech diver or run the car because I just want to be the wheelman. For a mission or two, I always bring like the shield backpack so that I got a little bit more survivability and the vehicle has got a little bit of more tankiness to it. I think if you were able to do that on your emplacements and in the mechs, that'd just be super cool. And again, just help them live a little bit longer. And then the SMG kind of pairs along with that, where you're kind of the pilot. You've optimized for not really having the strongest ground game, but once you're in the vehicle, that's when the kit kind of starts coming alive.
Yeah, and there was a bug like that not too long ago where you could deploy the directional shield while you're in your emplacement, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that, and it kind of felt very synergistic.
It did. It felt correct.
Yeah, well, it's like, if I was a helldiver on the field and I had that shield on my arm and I was sitting in an emplacement, you better believe I'd figure out a way to turn it on and, try to keep my head on my shoulders for a couple more seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And some of this stuff, Arrowhead often uses. It's a mill sim to hand wave away why some things are kind of more punishing and silly than they need to be. And it's like, great, but you kind of have to eat your vegetables with that too, when there's something that is just so obvious and on its face that a human being would be doing in this situation, that you kind of need to figure out a way to make it a reality.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, let's move on from that. And what are some other things that you've thought of that could support the SMG play style? Some other stratagems that aren't in the game. We can kind of use our creativity now to get outside of what's currently in the game, and what would really be some of the things that would make that one-handed play style a lot better.
Yeah. So my first thing was called I call it the Accelerator Gauntlet. And so this would be, kind of think of what the in my headcanon, this is so take the directional shield and make it a lot smaller. Kind of just the hexagonal piece that's just in front of the Helldiver. And let's just make it red because that would look cool. And basically you would shoot through this, kind of force field that it's creating, and it would accelerate the projectiles of the SMG. So this would basically increase our distance that we could shoot with it, and it would increase the damage.
I like that.
I think this would be a real cool way to supercharge the SMGs.
There's an ult in Overwatch. One of the support characters, Baptiste, he has a field that he puts up that everybody can shoot through, and it increases their damage. It sounds kind of similar to that idea, which I love, because it just kind of adds more of like that support role too.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe maybe it could be as big as the directional shield. It offers no defensive capabilities, but it's purely offensive.
Exactly.
And again, maybe there's a not necessary cooldown, but you can only shoot through it so much before it kind of overheats.
I could see that. All of the shields, they have that little bar, kind of similar to the jump pack or the hover pack. Both of them have like a cooldown bar for that. I can definitely see that being depleted by every shot that goes through it. So that way you're not just able to do it, ad nauseum.
Yeah, well, and it'd make it so, people, your whole team couldn't just stand behind one and just be going absolutely off,
Yeah, just trivialize everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that'd be a good balance for it. And again, obviously, I haven't mentioned this with a lot of this stuff, but the crossbow would be probably ancillarily benefiting from some of this stuff. However, the crossbow would not benefit from this at all. The explosion is what is good about the crossbow, not the arrow hitting something.
Totally right.
So yeah, so it really doesn't buff that at all. It's purely just the projectiles that are being shot through this thing, going faster, hitting harder. Maybe it ups their penetration value.
I'd love that.
Um, that'd be pretty sweet. So yeah, the accelerator gauntlet I think would be a really cool way, an offensive one-handed stratagem that would make using SMGs much more desirable. And you could also use it with your secondaries too, which would be sweet. Supercharged bushwhacker, that'd be fun.
That would be pretty awesome. Yeah, I think one balance note for that would probably just be to limit it to only increasing ballistic damage. So anything that's firing
Yeah,
a
I agree.
bullet. But that would be everything from, the pummeler all the way up to a heavy machine gun. I would love to see any one of those weapons being able to benefit from something like that amplification.
Yeah, I think basically anything with mass going through it, because I think you could use it with like the grenade pistol. It doesn't make it do more damage, but it could shoot it farther. It could just have crazy range.
Oh, now we're just going to be launching ultimatum shots across the map with that. It just turns it into a pocket recoilless rifle.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it just brings up some fun build diversity, and yeah, it's just fun to me. It just sounds like a fun time. Wouldn't break anything, and could have a lot of fun with it.
I mean, there's a way to make a Hellbomb trebuchet with the anti-tank emplacement, so I would love.
That's right.
I would love to see the creativity of players, see what they could do with it. What other ideas
100%.
did you have? I know you got a couple other ones here.
Yeah, so the next one was what I called the repulsor shield. So this would be, again, it's kind of on the offhand. It would have basically this would be kind of like a blowback type of thing for getting up close and personal, and kind of like a heavy stagger. So you'd kind of bring up the shield. Let's call it a shield, but it would kind of have a quick charge up phase, and then it would have a large AoE, kind of like a cone coming out in front of you, and would kind of heavy stagger everything right there, and then it would take some time to recharge it, but this would make it so that you can kind of get up close and personal with the SMGs and keep the pressure on, so that as the berserkers or the terminids are like really pushing you, or the voteless, you like kind of bring this up, gives like a big flash, everything kind of gets stunned. You're able to kind of start mowing things down pretty easily, waiting for it to recharge again. They kind of start regaining their bearings, then boom, you hit it with them again. It's real good for like the close range type of game, to make it a little bit more balanced, to where you're not just getting constantly overwhelmed.
I love that idea. It's kind of like the Hulk clap, doing like the big concussive burst to push things back. I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah. And again, pretty balanced. It could have a wide area of effect in front of you, but it doesn't go. It doesn't have like a lot of like forward depth.
Yeah,
so
maybe a
it's
5 meter range ahead of you.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
With a 180 cone, a 180 degree cone.
Yep, exactly. So just kind of hitting the things immediately in front of you, so you can just be chopping it up. I mean, it'd be super fun just even with a sword. You're just stunning and just cutting things down. I think you could just have some real great moments.
I'd love that
with a weapon like that.
I would love that. That sounds very cool. I creates a really good visual on the battlefield, and I'd love to see some friendly fire incidents with that. I think that'd be pretty hilarious.
Yeah,
but realistically, that could come in handy as well. If somebody's about to get trampled by a big charger, you turn and you pop them with that, knock them off their feet, and you just save somebody from getting crushed by a behemoth. I think that would actually be, that adds, because I've had a few moments like that where it's like, look out, you get down, Mr. President moment, where you're really trying to you're trying to save your teammate, but you're just you're helpless to watch them just get destroyed. Like, well, thank you for your service. We will never forget you. Reinforcing.
Yeah.
I see you got the super shield next. Is that like a large directional shield?
So it's funny. I put super shield on here because should be something in the game called the Super Shield.
Oh yeah, I mean we need super everything. I can't wait for them to introduce the Super Eruptor. That'll be my new favorite gun.
Yeah, so I don't quite know what this is, but earlier you talked about a shield that you could place, and this was kind of my idea. That the Super Shield was this basically placeable fortification that you could place, and you know how we got the grenade emplacement where it kind of
Yeah.
comes down and it even puts out some wings on it, so it kind of creates like a little wall. To me, this was basically what I was kind of thinking is you kind of plant this, it's a little wall, and then you can man it, by basically walking up to it, and maybe it has like a holster for your SMG to like lock into, and then it's kind of like on a swivel. You kind of go into third person mode with it, and then like it has the little wings on the side of it, so your teammates can kind of come up and it's like a mini fortification that you can pick up and move because like all the other emplacements you can't. But this one would be cool that you could use it like a shield, but also place it down, or maybe you can only place it down. Whatever makes sense. So the ballistic shield still has a place, but basically it's a movable fortification and has maybe a little gimbal that you can put your SMG into, and get some really good stability off of it. So you're kind of just like laser beaming with your SMG.
That's a cool idea. When I see Super Shield, I immediately think of Reinhardt from Overwatch, where you have this giant banner shield. It'd be like the directional shield, but much larger, so you could protect your whole team. Maybe
Sure.
you can't fire while you have it up because it'll be a larger shield. But I really like that idea of being the shield for your team. It'd be like really tanking the shots. I will be your shield. Get up, and everybody can still shoot through the shield behind you, and you're able to defend and just hold that line. I think that would be a lot of fun. Because when I play a lot of team-based games, I like to play the support or the tank, where I'm keeping my teammates alive. I'm protecting them from damage. I'm healing them when I can. I'd love to see more items in the game that could, play into that fantasy.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's a good idea for one of our episodes coming up is how to make support gameplay better. I think you and me both got some cool ideas there, but Super Shield. Maybe we didn't quite hit on that. I'd be interested to know what comes to other people's minds when they think of Super Shield, and we can theory craft some more on that.
Yeah, I'm always open to hearing what other people come up with, because man, I'll go through some of these Reddit posts. I'm like, man, I never thought of that. That's really smart. So I'm sure somebody will come up with the True Patriots Super Shield.
I know. I mean, there was a part of me too that was like Captain America, where you're shooting the shield.
That's so funny, because I just had that idea. I was like, well, maybe one that you throw and it ricochets around.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know how that would work in Helldivers at all, but to me, it's more like you have like a shield gun, where like it's just on your left hand, and you're shooting, you're just basically just shooting giant pieces of metal.
I love it. Why not?
Yeah.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
That's right. Yeah.
We got a war to win.
Out there. Yeah. My last stretch of my idea was called the bullet magnet. So, I don't know if you ever remember in District 6, there at one point he gets in a mech, like in one of those alien mechs, and all these people start shooting at him with this AK, and he this little, he like holds out one of his hands, and it starts like this little energy ball is there, and it starts sucking up all the bullets, and then he shoots it back.
District 9, but yes, I'm
District 9, District 6.
I know exactly what part you're talking about, and I think that is one of the coolest. First of all, that's one of the best mech scenes of all time,
absolutely,
in film history. But yes, I love that idea.
And so it would be something, again, it would have kind of you would turn it on, it would charge for X amount of time. I think you would turn it on and it would just kind of go. It had like a set time that it would charge for, and then at the end of that charge time, boof, it would release all that stuff. And obviously, probably no good against Terminids, but I think it'd be great against the bots. And let's just say it can also grab the overseers, plasma shots and stuff like that. Maybe it could suck up the bile spewer's bile or something like that and rebound it onto them. But definitely would be a fun thing on the bots, and I think there would be a fun way to configure it to work on the other factions as well.
Yeah, that would be fun. I mean, and that just gives me a quick idea. A reflector shield, I think that'd be a lot of fun too. Somebody's so heavy striders firing one of their big missiles at you. You pop up the reflector shield, boom, return to sender.
Yeah, and maybe that's kind of what it takes on. There's a high skill ceiling on some sort of reflector shield where it activates for a short amount of time, but anything that hits within that short amount of time gets reflected back. Kind of like a fighting game mechanic. Like a parry.
Yeah, I'd love that idea because I do like the idea of skill and timing being rewarded in gameplay, and I think that'd be a really cool way to add that into Helldivers.
Yeah, I'd love to reflect a turret shot back at it.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, exactly. Those bunker turrets, I am so sick of. I would love to give them a taste of their own medicine. Well, I think that pretty much covers it. Let's do a quick recap of everything we went over. The big things that we really are wanting out of the SMG category is that they should be stylish, they should be fast, they should be fun, you should be quick on your feet, you should be able to use your offhand more effectively, but we need to really give it that distinct identity so that it really is standing out from the AR category.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I was to implement all the things that we talked about right now into the game today, SMGs would probably be one of the most fun things to use. Would they be the most powerful? They'd still probably not. So might not beat out the Eruptor, but it would make it so that taking them was just not a meme. It's like, oh man, I want to take this and this, and I want to go ham playing this certain play style. The power fantasy would absolutely be there, and more than anything, the fun would be there, and that's really what matters. Because I just don't think SMGs are fun. There's a lot of things in this game that are fun. That's not one of them, and
I agree.
That's what a lot of this is meant to do, is make things fun.
Yeah, because at the current state, they're kind of punishing on higher levels. So yeah, I definitely agree that the fun factor really needs to be in there to make up for the fact that they're not the strongest in the game.
Yeah, and for everybody listening, me and Quinn, we play on basically Super Helldive and Helldive exclusively, unless we're doing some sort of farming for samples or something like that. So all of our experiences are at the highest level. So. And that's kind of what matters, because below those, it really doesn't matter. Once you get 6 and below, it really doesn't matter what you're using. The game just isn't, is it throwing enough at you for your build to ultimately matter too much? And that's kind of what we're talking about. Is let's make stuff so that it works on these higher difficulties. That, again, doesn't have to be meta, doesn't have to be crushing enemies, but usable and fun.
Yeah, and then on the other side of that is, there's a lot of room to innovate, a lot of things you could add into the game to make that one-handed play style a lot more fun. I mean, we went off on a ton of different shield types that would really make it a lot more enjoyable to add some higher skill ceiling items in, or some more support items, or items that are going to go along with that, like you had said, the pilot build where you're bringing in your items so that you can be quick on your feet when you're outside of your vehicle, and when you're in your vehicle you're using your stratagems to help support that play style as well. But there's tons of attachments and ammo types, designs, stratagems and different weapon types using the current landscape. So laser, plasma, arc, incendiary, any one of those would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm hoping, this, some amount of people hear this and have some ideas of their own on how to make SMGs better, stratagems that they think could make SMGs, elevate to the next level. And, if we get enough responses, and, obviously I'm going to continue playing the game, and I'm going to be thinking of more things, and we'll see how Arrowhead does, and we'll definitely do a follow up episode to this one for sure, because we can't get it all in this episode. And if a lot of people have some really good ideas, I'd love to talk about them and theory craft further.
Yeah, we'll be back for SMG Redux in the future. I'm sure of that.
That's right.
I know that we do have some more ideas for a lot of different areas in this game. Shay and I love playing it. We play it probably too much, but I think our next episode we're going to cover how to make armor better. I know Arrowhead has done a good job of addressing some of the lower performing armor passives, but I still think that there's plenty of room to grow in that section of the game.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, got a lot of real fun ideas for that. So I'm really excited to go over those with you, Quinn, see what you think, and see what your input is.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. We've already gone through a couple ideas before, so I'm excited to share those. But we really want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to this. If you guys have anything you want to add to this conversation or suggest future topics for this, please leave a comment on this. We will be reachable in email. We'll have social medias set up by the time this goes live. You'll find those in the description of this video. But from both Shay and I, thank you guys so much, and we really hope this finds its audience, and we're looking forward to sharing more with you guys.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good one.
All right, take care. And
stay buff.
Stay buff for Super Earth.